Finance is a world that's absolutely obsessed with precision. It's all built on a foundation of hard, cold numbers. And yet, it's a world that's completely haunted by these spectacular failures. Failures that don't start in the chaos of a trading floor, but inside the quiet, clean logic of a spreadsheet. It's a huge paradox, and that's what we're going to unravel today. How can a tool that's designed for clarity end up leading to such catastrophic mistakes?
You see, at the heart of every single complex financial model, behind all the fancy formulas and projections, there isn't some objective truth waiting to be discovered. Nope. There's a story. A very human, very subjective story about what someone thinks or hopes the future is going to look like.
And that right there is the big question, isn't it? Because when that story, the one hidden inside the numbers, turns out to be wrong, the consequences aren't just some academic exercise. They can be absolutely devastating. Okay, so to really understand the problem, first we have to appreciate the power of these things. Let's start by looking at financial models the way they're supposed to be used, as these essential navigation tools, like maps for charting a really complex business world. This right here, this is the core idea. Every single financial model has this kind of split personality. On one side, you've got the map, the rigorous technical tool that gives us structure and helps us quantify things. But on the other side, you've got the myth. That's the human story, the narrative that's built on a pile of assumptions and, let's be honest, colored by our own biases.
So the most foundational map for any company is what we call the three-statement model. It works by forcing the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement to all link up and talk to each other. It's like a system of checks and balances. It's an absolutely indispensable tool that just cuts through all the accounting games to show you what a company's financial health really is. It just forces everything to reconcile. And from that basic map, we get all these specialized versions. A discounted cash flow or a DCF model that helps us figure out a company's real intrinsic value. A leveraged buyout or LBO model that charts the tricky territory of buying a company with a lot of debt. And of course, an M&A model, which maps out what the future looks like when two companies become one. These are the tools that guide billion-dollar decisions.
Okay, so the map is undeniably useful. We get it. But now, let's look a little closer. Let's try to uncover that ghost in the machine, the story, or what we're calling the myth, that every single model secretly tells. This is where we get into some human psychology. You see, we're just wired for stories. The narrative fallacy is this glitch in our thinking, where we prefer a simple, clean story over a messy, complicated reality. And in the world of finance, which is just filled with uncertainty, that desire for a good story is incredibly seductive. So here's how this actually plays out step by step. An analyst starts with a great story they've fallen in love with, something like, this company's tech is just unbeatable. Then, maybe without even realizing it, they start picking assumptions, like really high growth rates, that make the numbers prove that story. And just like that, the model stops being a map for exploration and turns into an oracle, a crystal ball that just confirms what they already wanted to believe in the first place. So what are the consequences here? What happens when a whole company, or even an entire financial system, starts mistaking the myth for reality? What happens when the map doesn't just get you a little lost, but leads everybody straight off a cliff? Let's start with a classic case, long-term capital management. Now, this wasn't just some random hedge fund. It was run by a literal dream team of star traders and Nobel Prize-winning economists. Their mathematical models, they were seen as flawless, the absolute pinnacle of financial science. The level of hubris was, well, it was off the charts. Their whole strategy, their entire firm, was built on one single beautiful assumption, that the historical relationships between different assets would just continue. But when Russia defaulted on its debt back in 1998, that assumption didn't just bend, it shattered. Markets that were never supposed to move together suddenly started moving in perfect, terrifying lockstep. And because LTCM had used a massive amount of leverage, a single crack in their perfect model threatened to bring down the entire global financial system. But believe it or not, that was just a warm-up. Let's jump ahead to the 2008 crisis and talk about a model called Value at Risk, or VAR. Now, this wasn't some secret hedge fund tool. This was the official safeguard mandated by regulators for the entire banking system. Its whole job was to prevent the next crisis. And this is the part that is just so shocking. The VAR model didn't just fail to see the crisis coming. The evidence actually suggests it became a central cause of the crash. The tool that was designed for stability actively created this system-wide contagion. I mean, how is that even possible? This table really breaks down the difference in scale. LTCM's failure was an internal one. It was one firm's bad assumption, blown up by its own leverage. But the VAR failure, that was systemic. Its fatal assumption was basically that if every individual bank was stable, then the whole system had to be stable. But the problem was, when every single bank used the same model, they all started selling the same assets at the same time whenever their risk models flashed red. And this synchronized selling just hammered prices, which triggered more selling. It became this self-reinforcing death spiral that drove the entire market towards a total collapse. So, if we can't trust models as oracles, if they can actually be dangerous, then what are they even for? Well, the answer lies in a really critical mindset shift. We have to stop thinking about prediction and start thinking about guidance. A guidance system means you have to actively attack your own assumptions. The two best tools for this are sensitivity and scenario analysis. Sensitivity analysis is where you just tweak one variable at a time to see which one really moves the needle. But scenario analysis, that's about imagining completely different futures, a best case, a worst case, a crazy case, and seeing if your strategy can actually survive them. It's all about exploring possibilities, not trying to predict one single outcome. And look, this takes real discipline. It requires what some people call active contrarian thinking. That's the ability to build the strongest possible argument against your own beautiful story. It means you have to prioritize flexibility over rigid forecasts. And ultimately, it means recognizing that technology is for calculation, but we humans, we're for wisdom. Which brings us all the way back to our fundamental question. If a model isn't really a map to some predetermined future, and it sure as heck isn't an oracle, then what is it really for? And here it is. This is the big intellectual shift. The real value of a financial model isn't to spit out an answer. It's a tool that forces a deeper, more strategic conversation. It makes us write down our assumptions, debate them, and stress test them. Its ultimate purpose is to help us ask better, smarter, and much tougher questions. In the end, a model can give you direction. It can show you which way is north, but it can't tell you where to go. That requires judgment, it requires wisdom, and it requires an understanding of the story that you're trying to write. The model is just the compass. The human mind must always be the one to choose the destination.